It's cold and rainy outside, but you want something sweet to snack on. You think about getting in the car and driving to that bakery that has all those delicious cakes and pastries. But when you look out the window, the wind is blowing and the rain is just coming down in a steady stream. So you put your jacket back in the closet and go to the kitchen and start thinking about Plan B. Now, if you're anything like me, you keep the basic baking ingredients on hand in your refrigerator and pantry. I'm talking about milk, eggs, butter, sugar, flour, and baking powder. A quick check of the pantry revealed that I also had butterscotch chips and walnuts, and I realized that some warm walnut butterscotch cookies would scratch that itch for something sweet. Come along with me while I make these delicious treats. For this recipe, we will need 1½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/2 cup of butterscotch chips, 1/2 cup of walnut pieces, 1/2 cup butter, 1/2 cup granulated white sugar, 1 cup of dark brown sugar lightly packed, 1 egg extra large, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract.
Once you have assembled all of your ingredients, you want to measure all the dry ingredients in one bowl and all the wet ingredients in another bowl. I've already measured 1 cup of flour into my mixing bowl, and I'm adding another 1/2 cup of flour to make a total of 1.5 cups. Then you want to add the baking powder, baking soda, and salt into the bowl and whisk to incorporate all the ingredients. Set this bowl aside until later.
The next thing you want to do is place the butter in a microwave-safe bowl and melt the butter in the microwave for about 35 seconds, or just until the butter is melted. Next, you'll want to whisk the white sugar into the melted butter until thoroughly combined. Then you can add the brown sugar and whisk that until the butter and sugar is thoroughly combined. Once the butter and sugar mixture has been combined, you can add the egg and vanilla extract and whisk all of these together until everything is thoroughly combined. You should note that the sugar, butter, and egg mixture cannot be overbeaten at this point, so make sure to stir these ingredients well until they're light and fluffy. You can also use an electric mixer for this if you have one, or if you don't, you can just use a spoon and stir it together if that's all you have. Just make sure and stir everything together until it's light and fluffy.
Scrape this wet mixture into the dry flour mixture and stir with a spoon or a spatula just until all the ingredients have been moistened. Make sure not to overmix at this point. It may seem at first that there's not enough wet ingredients in proportion to the dry ingredients, but just stay with it. It will come together. The important thing is not to overmix it at this point. You can change the flavorings any way you like. Instead of butterscotch chips, you can use chocolate chips or white chocolate chips. You can use dried fruits like cherries, cranberries, apricots, or raisins. You can also substitute pecans, almonds, macadamia nuts for the walnuts. The only limit is your imagination. Today I'm using butterscotch chips and walnuts because that's what I had on hand. Gently but thoroughly mix the chips and nuts into the cookie dough until combined. Using a spoon or a cookie scoop, place walnut-sized pieces of cookie dough on a sheet pan that has been lined with parchment paper, wax paper, or in my case, I'm using a silicone baking mat, and bake in a 350-degree oven for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, rotate the pan halfway in the oven and bake for another 4 to 5 minutes or until lightly brown. All ovens heat differently, so you may need to adjust the baking time according to your individual oven. Before placing the cookies in the oven, you may want to take your impeccably clean hands and slightly reshape the cookies, making sure that there are no stray bits of cookie dough on the pan and that they are all roughly the same size and shape. When the cookies are done, remove from the oven and let the cookies sit in the pan and cool for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, carefully remove cookies from the baking pan and continue to cool on a wire rack for about 30 minutes. Try not to eat the cookies while they are hot. These will taste best if you wait for at least 30 minutes to 1 hour after removing them from the oven before you eat them. They really do need this resting time. Once cooled, they can be stored in an airtight, resealable plastic bag or any other airtight container. This recipe makes approximately 16 to 28 cookies, depending upon the size of the cookie. Enjoy!
The cookies have cooled for a bit, so let's give it a try. The molasses and the brown sugar is so delicious. It gives it a very warm, rich taste. Not too sweet. The walnuts give it a nice crunch and a slightly maple taste. You saw how easy this was to put together. And most of these ingredients you probably already have on hand. So I hope you give it a try. If you've enjoyed this recipe, please hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment. I really do enjoy hearing from all of you. So I hope you can join me next time. This is Howard with Adventures in Food. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.